I'm Ernie Drew. First thing I'm going to say is um, I looked at art and I looked in poetry and such, and I'm a Vietnam veteran. And so there was a photo that we used in the class that some of you may know and some of you may not know. It's historically been called Napalm Girl, and it shows a 9-year-old girl running from a village that has been just napalmed, and she's naked and screaming. And so I just wanted to give a warning there. Can we see the image, Mark? Okay. So that was the image, and I knew it, and it made an impression. As part of a unit on Vietnam War, we looked at some award-winning photographs, this being one, and talked about the history and the policy surrounding the war. In the class, this image was presented by Dr. Suzanne Scanlon from the Rhode Island School of Design. I remembered this photograph from the 70s. The photograph was taken by Nick Ut and won a Pulitzer Prize. The photographer took the young girl to an American hospital where her wounds were treated and she survived, and she is still alive today. Concurrently, in the news, the devastation affecting the civilians in Ukraine today triggered some old memories. My once forgotten memory of napalm goes back to 1966. I was a young intelligence officer for a fighter squadron on an aircraft carrier off the coast of Vietnam. My commanding officer thought I would be a better intelligence officer if I flew on some missions in the backseat of the F-4. My memory of napalm came from one of these missions. The scheduling officer came to me and said, "Ernie, I have a flight today. Doesn't require a flight officer in the back seat. Would you like to take a little airborne liberty?" I quickly said yes. It meant I could take a flight in the backseat of the F-4 off the ship for a couple of hours by flying a combat mission over South Vietnam and then returning to the ship. I was still young enough that any new experience, no matter how dangerous, was worth doing. This would be like any other joyride I had experienced. 2 hours before the flight was scheduled to take off, I went to the ready room for a flight briefing. The mission was to fly over South Vietnam, check in with an Army airborne spotter in a small plane, and drop canisters of napalm on a target designated by the spotter. The time came to go up to the flight deck with John, the pilot, and find our assigned aircraft. The plane captain directed us to an aircraft with the side number 104. I walked around the airplane with the pilot as he did his pre-flight check. The plane captain released the ladder. I climbed up and got into the back ejection seat. The plane captain helped me get strapped in, which consisted of strapping the bottom of the seat to the harness I was wearing and bringing the shoulder restraints down over my shoulder and fastening in the center of the lap belt. I then plugged my helmet into the communications port and was immediately able to hear the flight boss and the operations officer. John, the pilot, did a radio check with me and asked if I was ready to go. Planes were already leaving the flight deck. We taxied to our position at the catapult, and the deck crew hooked us up to the catapult. At this time, communications with the flight deck personnel was with hand signals. John ran the 2 engines up to full power, went into afterburner, and signaled that we were ready to launch. The aircraft was sent down a catapult for about 3 seconds, reaching a speed of 165 miles an hour. It became airborne. We climbed to 25,000 feet and headed for a rendezvous with the airborne spotter in South Vietnam. At the scheduled time, John called for Bird Dog 36 and notified him that we were overhead. Our call sign was Eggshell 104, and in about 10 minutes, we heard, "Eggshell 104, I will mark your target now with a smoke." We saw the smoke land, and the spotter said that it was a good target and cleared us to drop. Because we were dropping napalm, we had to be at a low altitude, so we quickly came down from 25,000 feet to about 1,200 feet and started the run-in to drop site with the smoke still visible. We were wings level, and suddenly I felt the aircraft jump a little bit as the canisters were released. John added power, immediately started climbing, broke left, which allowed us to look over our shoulders and see the flames and smoke from the canisters we had dropped. We went back up to 25,000 feet for our trip back to the aircraft carrier. John checked in with the ship. We had a scheduled slot for a landing. We lined up for final touchdown, and the hook caught one of the 4 wires. We came to a complete stop. I quickly changed into my uniform and went to the intelligence center to resume my real job. My immediate recollection of that flight was that it was fun. For a class taught by Jonas Haley, we were assigned a poem, The Song of Napalm, by Bruce Weevil, which he dedicated to his wife. Outside my wild plans and after the hard rain, I turned my back on the old curses. I believed they swung finally away from me. But still, the branches are wire and the thunder is pounding mortar. Still, I close my eyes and see the girl running from the village, napalm stuck to her dress like jelly, her hands reaching for no one who waits in the waves of heat before her. I mention this poem because I had not really thought about the effects of napalm on non-combatants or the soldier on the ground who was being exposed to these horrific scenes. The description of Napalm Girl in the poem, as well as the photo, caused me to reflect on my own participation in a dropping of napalm. My uninformed view in 1966 has been changed significantly through my lessons learned by being a member of the PCVI class in humanities.